Welcome to the Video Marketing Clinic, and this is episode 2. And subject matter is: Are you harnessing the true power of AI? Here's how, and I'm going to show you in this conversation. So, obviously, we talked last week about the changing landscape and how video marketing has changed dramatically in the last few years, particularly following the pandemic. So, in episode 1, we laid the groundwork. And then we talked about the impact of AI, and I used some big words like, seismic change and, big stuff anyway. And that's it. And it is. Okay. So today I want to try and keep it a little bit shorter and a little bit more succinct. And I know I can talk forever on this stuff. So look, if you're watching in the Facebook group, then drop me a comment. So please say hello. And if you are in the Facebook group, I use a software called Restream. So there should be in the the blurb I put out today, there should be a question, a little thing you can click, which then gives Restream permission to connect to your Facebook and see who you are. So if you post a comment, I can see. All right. So if you can do that, that'd be great, because then I can respond to it and I know who I'm talking to. It's just helpful. I can use you by name, and if we do, as we go, we'll get better at this and smarter. But it's cool. We have all this great technology at our fingertips, and AI is really just the start of it all. So look, I'm streaming to the Facebook group called The Art of Video Marketing. So if you really, that's the best place to be honest. And I know getting off the platforms you like, whether it's LinkedIn or YouTube, is difficult, because we all like to stick on the platforms we love most. But if you are there, I would recommend that you come over to the Art of Video Marketing Facebook group. It's a very simple process. There's only 3 questions. Just request to join. I just want to know a little bit about you, so I know who I'm talking to, the level of the audience, because I'm trying to cover quite a wide gamut of people. So, hey, Lisa, welcome. Hey, look at that. Great, it works. The technology. Well, Lisa, I think you'll know. Look at this. We've got it. I've actually got the wrong colors on, because it should be my video agency side. But like, Lisa, great to have you here. Fantastic. Good. Always like it. Always love it when people can get involved. And other than doing the challenges, I kind of got out of the Video Rainmaker challenge. I go through these lulls where I'm making videos, but I'm not doing live streams. But that is now going to change it all with these regular live streams every week. Should have been doing, but this AI, I can't miss it. I can't avoid not talking about it. We've gone so deep this year. And so look, let's talk about today. So about harnessing the power of AI. I'll keep it shortish. I'll keep it succinct. The reason I want you to join the Facebook group, if you're not there already, is that's where I can answer more questions, and I'm going to be sharing more content in there. Okay, I've got specific stuff. We've been doing some stuff which, if it doesn't have your jaw on the floor, then I'll be bloody surprised, to be quite honest, because even I am staggered at what's possible, and particularly what's changed even in the last few weeks. How a lot of what I was working on before, I haven't ripped it up. That's not the point. The point is I've been able to deploy that in ways that, my God, it makes life so much easier. So the other thing is I've made sure that my microphone's out of the way. I've got a wee lavalier mic on here, so I can move around, because I like to kind of I get a bit excited about this stuff. So anyway, welcome. Great for you to be here. And thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And let's see if I can give you some real value. What I'm going to focus in on today is, there's a lot around AI. I could talk about this forever. I can talk about video for days on end, as you probably gather. But I want to focus in on probably one of the most key area for us as experts, coaches, consultants, course creators, and as marketing execs, the primary thing we've got to do, and takes up a lot of our time in our life, is content. So I'm going to focus in on content specifically today. But let me back up. Let's just make sure we're all on the same playing field. So let's just talk about the history about AI quickly, all right? Because again, we bandy this word around, and sometimes we don't fully understand. And kind of, I guess, what's scary about it, and what's we've always watched these programs about computers and sci-fi and robots and everything else. So we really are, but the reality is hitting home. But I think the interesting thing is, the reality is now hitting home in a way that we don't even know where this is going to go. It's far bigger, it's far more important, and probably impacting more of our lives in many different ways than we would have anticipated. Now, I think what we think now will be nothing how it shapes our lives in the next 18 months to 2 years, which is why I went very quiet for a long time to make sure that I wasn't just another voice in the crowd. My priority at first was to make sure I could understand how I could use it in my business. And by doing that, I could help you in terms of using it in yours. And like everything, I tend to go fairly deep. When I go into something, that's my exponential markets background. So I tend to rip it to pieces. I go in deep and I really try and work it out. I come from an analytical background. I happen to spot patterns, waves, and everything else. And this has got me more excited than the electronic trading revolution did, which I was happy to, I was fortunate enough to be at the forefront of and an instigator of. 15 years ago, we were writing at the end of after doing lots of different things from trading and analysis, I had a software business. We were writing trading software for some of the hedge funds in those days, trading groups and proprietary trading, what were called algorithmic trading. And there you go. So me and models, I'm very familiar with the whole algo, and a lot of the funds I worked with were quant. So they were quantitative driven. So they had computer models and everything else. And that's kind of why this appeals to me. But I see the enormity and the potential, because again, it's similar to when electronic trading was coming along. Most people, they either got stuck and just wanted to stay in their old mode. They didn't embrace it. Those guys lost their jobs. They went. And I'm not saying you should get scared by it, because actually, if you jump on this, the potential is massive. But all the time, you've got to look at it in the right way. So let me just back up again and say, the history of it. So AI isn't new. AI in its sort of current form has really been around since the 50s. But obviously, the big change came a year ago when OpenAI released ChatGPT to the world. And that, as you'll hear me say, that was the genie out of the bottle. It was released, and we can't now put it back in. And even in this past year, if you look at the speed of change, it's quite phenomenal. But what does AI do? Well, I guess the scary part of it is it's heavy computing power. It is artificial intelligence. It's computers trying to think, more than trying, thinking like humans. So where the benefit is for all these it's massive computing power. So what I call LLMs, large language models, these are huge, being built. And what they do is they are very, very good at studying patterns, behaviors, how humans think, what we do. And of course, they've got the wealth of information. When ChatGPT came out originally, and until a few months back, it was trained up to, I think at that point, it was April 2021. It had read through 10% of the entire internet. Just bear that in mind, 10% of the internet it had gone through. So that'll kind of give you a clue. Now it's been updated and it's pretty much up to date. And of course, now a lot of these different AI models, and I'll talk about the ones I use briefly, a lot of these AI models now have the ability to go in and go in and do searches and perform functions that before they were kind of in their sort of, in their domain based on what they'd been trained, what they knew up to that point in time. Now we're into the stage where they're starting to iterate. They're learning from us as we get to use them, and they're continuing to learn about what's going on in the world. So for instance, if a few months back you'd asked it about COVID, they didn't know about the pandemic, they didn't know about COVID. Ask it about anything else and it kind of knew about that. Okay, so that it's not new, it's been around quite a long time, but obviously the big seismic change, and that was the other word I've used, seismic, and and again, I don't use these words lightly. So when OpenAI put ChatGPT, that is it. That spawned. It's basically the arms race, to be quite honest, in terms of whole AI. And now, if you're following it, what you'll have seen is obviously AI is being adopted and everything. And we have been using AI in things like Alexa, and a lot of these applications are tracking and following and doing behavioral sort of stuff. Now we've just raised the game a whole quantum leap further on. So ChatGPT opened it. We've now had all these others building AI-like features into their programs. And obviously the big proponents of this are the big people like Microsoft, Google, Microsoft. They're putting billions and billions of dollars into this. And companies like Amazon and all these big companies are building it in to do different functions, okay? But understanding the context is important. I'm going to talk about context specifically. But then how do we use it? Again, and I had I had to do the reality check recently where I started to realize, I thought, oh my God, people are overwhelmed by video and all these different spinning plates. And for me, it's quite fortunate because I'd had to go back to kind of the beginning. I've been doing video for using it in some shape or form for 15 years and full time for the last 6 years. So I'm kind of, at this coalface day in, day out. I had to go back, and AI actually helped me also reset, because I had to go back as someone who understood technology, but as a novice, starting to understand how I use this, how I get my head around it, and how do I make it work for me, was actually a really, really good exercise, because I had to go back to the grassroots of my video marketing and say, well, how can I use this to leverage it in a way that it helps my business, that helps me perform the functions that I can do? And I'll be honest, it's quite a big learning curve, but I'm going to come back to that in a second. So that's the kind of the history. The role of it now is it's across everything. All right. So we've seen it in all our day-to-day activities. We'll see that more and more in terms of clever devices, in terms of how companies deploy it, whether it's personalization, whether it's data, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously, as I said last week in the video, we've seen this big move. It's now coming into not just, the graphics space, obviously, which I'm not going to talk about today. That's another whole thing. The graphics has evolved very, very quickly in its capability, whether you're using Midjourney or DALL-E or one of those. That the whole graphics capability is stunning now in terms of how it can. And now we're starting to see that come into video too. Okay, so all of those who ask me, do I have to get on camera? And even with my last challenge, I was thinking, yes, you do. The honest answer is no, you don't anymore. Okay, again, I'm going to park that one for another conversation. But now the technology is good enough to replicate you. Let's dive into the content. Okay, let's have a look at that. And I apologize, I'm going to keep my notes here because I'm going to try and keep this on. So I look at it, AI in three ways. And again, quickly, how I started is I looked at it from a very simple. What I did is I looked at my business and I chunked down. I said, what is it that I would like AI to do with me? Start there. So I've chunked it down. I've looked at a distinct piece of work, so I knew what I was going for. Because the other problem with AI, and here's what I will say to you, is you need to invest the time to understand it. Now, I'm going to knock that out of the court because of what's happened more recently, but you kind of need to get your head around it. And that means it's a learning curve, which is back to what I was saying. I've suddenly realized that people were struggling with video anyway, and suddenly you had this AI coming, and of course, the overwhelm has just gone extreme. The noise level is very high. So let's cut through everything and show you really how you can use it, how you need to think about it. So, and if we just look at the content piece, so that's I started to look at my workflows. One of my superpowers is syndication, how we take a piece of content and we create multiple pieces. That was a total nightmare because it was great. We did it well, but there's a lot of backwards and forwards, moving video files, getting video editors to do clips, getting all sorts of people to do different work, social media. So there was a lot of toing and froing. So that's how I started looking at it. And I went, right, how does it make my business easier? Then the piece I really looked at was, okay, right. One of the stumbling blocks in the agency was I end up doing all the research. So I'm a bottleneck in my own business in the agency side because I did all the research and analysis. It's kind of that was one of my strengths. So I'd rip everything to pieces, and I spotted the best video marketing strategy for a client to do and go, right, let's not waste time. Here's what we need to do. Here's the steps. Here's what we focus in on. And the other bit that I was holding was script writing. So writing scripts for videos. So I then said, okay, right, content is the big piece. So let's focus in on this content. So for me, there's three ways to use AI for content. The first one is ideation. So that is coming up with ideas. And it's great. So on that's kind of all the stuff, people putting out prompts and all that, that's kind of what I see. That is just scratching the surface, but that's what 99% of people are doing. What I will say to you is when you be quite specific, it's quite easy to go down the rabbit hole and get distracted. So be quite clear on what you're trying to do. You're trying to find ideas, you're trying to get content, you're trying to do something. So you know what your end result is. Then when you sit down in front of your AI and start asking it questions, because you're starting at a very high superficial level. Okay, so you start maybe with ideas saying some fairly generic sort of stuff, and then you start drilling down into it. As I say, that is what most people are doing. That to me is less than 5% of what you should be doing. Yes, ideation is important. Yes, the content creation is important, but how, just that's the bit that you want to play around with. It's very good. As I like to do, I like to pick up an idea and then I like to turn it around and have a look at it and have a look at it from different angles. So when you do, because AI is able to draw on so much information, it can give you perspectives that you never thought about. I think I've got a video to go out, and I say it's in the power of your questions you ask, and that's very true of AI. So if you want to do something, but here's one thing you want to sometimes do: you want to get it to take different perspectives for you, ask the different questions, ask what people don't believe or don't understand. And again, something I'm not going to go into, but I'm going to talk about in the group specifically, is what a lot of this is dependent on. And one of the first pieces of work you have to do when using AI is really understand your client avatar, your ideal target audience. AI is brilliant for that. Whereas before I used to have to run a whole series of prompts and sequences, I have one super prompt basically that actually does all that work. And what comes out of it is incredible. It's eye-opening. And it makes you think, but you need to understand that, particularly when you're content creation. I'll come back to that in a second. But so we're talking about this high level, just skimming the surface, looking for ideas and then drilling down. And then when you see something that kind of resonates and appeals, that's when you start to dive deeper and you start to look at it, you start to get different angles. And that's when you start putting your piece of content together. And so AI is helping you in terms of the ideas and then the creative process of actually putting, and that's where as humans, we're very good at. Okay. AI is helping us. It's doing the lifting. It's a high powered, inexpensively paid, but it's a high value assistance. And that's how I look at it. They are assistants and you are the conductor. I said that in a little clip. You are the conductor of the show. You're running these guys and you want to run multiples of them. So for ideation, it's great. Start high, go deep, build it out. Then put the content together in your in basically in you that emulates and replicates you. All right. So do that, put the content together and then go and edit it. AI does go off on flights of fancy. I've had some really funny ones, but AI does go off on flights of fancy. You do have to correct it. You do have to put it back on course, but it's great. And then by you then putting in your stuff. So don't just hit a button, get it to put out some generic, bland crap, to be quite honest. Don't do that because that's what most people are doing. And that ain't the answer. It isn't going to, which again, let me then go back to why the first piece of work you're going to do, or you should do, is is understanding your client avatar. But also when you're creating using AI, take the time to put all the information together about your business. If you're an expert, your personal bio, your unique methodology, your ideal client avatars, your products and services. You want to have all that ready because this is the content you're going to feed your AI. You're training it to think and understand like your business. Don't give it anything proprietary. So don't give it anything that's sensitive information or proprietary, because obviously it's out in the public domain then, effectively. So if it's proprietary, keep it quiet. But that is a very important step. We haven't got time to dive into that on this call, but do that groundwork because that shapes all the content you're going to do. We've tested a lot of different ways of doing it. It's amazing the difference. Okay, so do that piece of groundwork, content creation, then it gives it your tone. Once you've done your work, it's your content. It's not another bland piece of content. It'll be in your voice. It'll be in your tone. It'll fit your brand. It'll fit your style of messaging. And you can train. AI can listen to your videos. It can do all sorts of stuff, read transcripts, read your website, and you can train it. So do that. So we started with number one, content creation, ideation. Number two, this is, sorry, that was ideation. Now the content creation piece. So let's talk about how it streamlines. And this is going back to the piece I just said about building out all that information. This is where the value of AI comes in, because you are going to train it. You're going to season it in terms of your product, your client avatars. You're going to give it all this information. And we go further. What we do is we build in, and again, I'll talk about the AI assistants and GPTs. What we do is we tend to build in examples. So let me give you an example. Let me just talk you through something. So if I'm going to do a piece of, let's say it's a content creation. So I'm going to do a piece of content. I've got the idea for what I want to do, and I'm going to feed it to ChatGPT. So I then give it a quite a specific instruction. And by that, I mean, I will give it a lot of context. And this is where AI is really important. You need to give it context. So give it as much information as you can from what style you want it to be written in. So like a world-class copywriter or a videographer or a social media, give it quite a lot of information, give it a lot of context, then feed it the information you need to give it what it needs, which is you probably uploading your documents. Now, I used to use Claude. I've gone back to ChatGPT because ChatGPT at that point couldn't handle all the information I wanted to feed it. Now it can handle quite a lot in terms of how you save it, but I will still upload quite a lot of information. And what I do is I will often get it to go through and repeat back to me to make sure it's read it all, because sometimes it'll read some of it and skip it. So I will make sure it understood my target audience, me, my business, everything else. And then the conversation in earnest starts. So then I go into the content creation. Now, what I do, and we build into some of these, is we then give it further context. For instance, if I'm writing, let's say I'm trying to write headlines, I might give it 100, of the best world-class headlines or top, areas to give it some ideas so it knows what to work off. Even if they're not related to my niche, it doesn't matter. It helps it. So the more context you give it and the more information you feed it, then the more personal, the more powerful it becomes. That's kind of what I'm saying. Now, what we were doing is we were doing what we call stacked content, stacked prompts. So we'd feed it all these prompts. Now, before it was like copy, paste, refine, copy, paste. And to be honest, for a lot of people, they go, oh my God, what's all this? You're asking all these questions, then I've got to do all this. And I went, well, that's kind of how it works. That's what you got to do. Then we got quite good at putting all these together. We could string these prompts together in one after another as one upload. So I put it into a document, I just put it all in and go, right. And then the command would say, here's what I want to do. Here's the information you need. Here's all the prompts. Do these in sequential order. And what I started to realize is actually what's really good is you can get AI to self-correct and self-prompt itself. So for instance, I'd get it to it would write an outline for an article or write a post. And I would go, okay, right, how can you improve that above? And AI would go, okay, right, yeah, I could, we could tighten up this, that wording could be better, the headline could be more, but this is it doing it itself, not me. I've already told it what I wanted to do. And once you start to learn what works for you and how to do it, and this is kind of where it gets into the real value stuff, then you get it to self-prompt. Now, again, I could put them all together. Now, what I do is I take that information. Once I've worked out how I want it to look and feel, I take it and I put it into an AI assistant or a GPT. So I train that to run the whole lot. All I need to give it is like 3 or 4 pieces of information. My niche, target audience, so product, target audience, maybe another steer, some information. And once I've told it that, it's got my information to draw on. So I only need to enter in a few pieces of information and I just hit the button and it does the work. To see it, and that's what I'm going to show you in the group, is phenomenal. And that's kind of where the power is. Now, what I would say to people is, obviously, that is kind of, because this has all suddenly come along, we're all going, oh my God. It's going to make it easier for you to go and do that and find people who built these GPTs or build them yourself. If you know what the secret, and to build them yourself, you're going to have to understand that process. As I said at the beginning, you need to understand the process. You need to kind of understand how it works, or you may be able to work with someone or find someone who's done what you want to create. I would still encourage you, to be honest, to understand the nuances. But again, it's like everything. There's 2 ways of doing that. There's one going in from the groundwork up and starting to do that, or get some of these GPTs, do them, and start thinking, see where the power and what they can do, and then work out how you want to adapt or evolve it for you, for your specific circumstances. Okay, and then you're starting to unleash power. Okay, and that power leads me on to my favorite topic of all, which is I hope that made sense. Again, just everyone's still with me in terms of what I'm trying to say and what I'm saying about these AI assistants and chat GPTs. They're like a computer program that's doing all the work for you, and you're feeding it all the right information and it will go in. I'll give you another example quickly. So now, because I've got it all trained up, I've got my content there. I can pick a theme for the month ahead, and I know all the content I need to create or want to create. So I've got I've got one long form a week or whatever it is. I've got all this short form. I've got topics. I've got stuff that I want to hit, different angles given my target audience. So I want to come at them. I'm creating different sort of content, so slightly different styles of content to appeal to their beliefs, to change misbeliefs, to do whatever. Okay, I can now do that literally, and I think I've got a session. We all sit down on a session. I'm on a session for a couple of hours tomorrow, but in an hour I can literally have all my content, one-liners, videos, bang bang. I can have all my content done or mapped out and pretty much written. Now I go in and then put my time into the long form content, because again, that's the piece that I want to work on and focus in on, because it's a very effective use of my time to then go in and take this long form, which I then, as you'll see with these live streams, I take that and then we repurpose that. Okay, so talk about repurposing. That's a great segue into what I want to talk about next, which is repurposing. And again, what was taking me hours, I'm now saving at least 5 to 10 hours, probably more a week. It's hard to judge because I'm testing and messing around with a lot of stuff, so it's hard. But in the clear light of day, it'll be interesting when we come out the other side of this and see how much time and how better I'm able to use my time on things I want to be doing, rather than repetitive, laborious, time-consuming tasks like editing, checking, handing stuff backwards and forwards between people. So the repurposing I love it because I think it's really, really good. And there's a couple of reasons I like it, because if you're repurposing content, particularly if I've taken the time and effort to, so let's say it's a video. Let's just take a video. That's my stuff. So I tend to, the ones that are good for me, and you'll hear me bang on about, was if you're doing we call it the big rock strategy, big rock content. So if you're doing one video a week, so that's YouTube probably. If you're doing one podcast, do a video podcast. So that's one podcast, or you're doing a live stream. Those are big rock content. Put the time and effort into whatever piece of content that suits you, create it, put some stuff in, and then that's when you can hand it off to AI and let it do the work. Okay. And again, let me just talk you through that. So we still do a certain amount of lifting. I could get rid of this, but again, I'm playing around with how we do it. So I can do like today's live stream. Once I finish this live stream, what do? I upload it to a tool that'll then provide a transcript. That transcript goes into my AI assistant, into the GPT, and that goes ahead and then creates all the snippets. Now, I still use something else. I still haven't found the best way. I can't do it within ChatGPT or Claude. And here's, just so you understand, so the tools I use at the moment are, I use Jasper. Jasper was great because it's a marketer's tool written for and by marketers. It's been kind of now, it was great because it did specific functions that as a marketer you would want to do. So I like Jasper. But for it's getting sort of sidelined to be quite honest, because of what I can do and build in ChatGPT now. So I've got Jasper. I still use it because I like it for certain things. I like the way I can set up. I used to build these recipes in Jasper, which is all these more detailed stuff. ChatGPT, obviously, very good, doing some great stuff. I did notice a little bit of wobble. Funny enough, at the time when they tried to oust Sam Altman, I noticed it was off track a bit. But ChatGPT, obviously, that's good. That's the paid version. You need the paid version to do this higher functionality at $20 a month, $24, whatever, depends what tax zone you're in. But $20 odd a month, best tool you get. It's worth 2 or 3 people. Claude, I like Claude because of it. Again, it can handle big reams of information. I can upload a lot to it. That's been superseded, as I say, by ChatGPT. And I was using Bard originally just for research, because obviously it's Google's tool and it was able to go in and do research for me. Bard I've started using a little bit more again, because Bard has just updated its model and it's brilliant. And I can get it to watch a YouTube video. So let's say it's this video, I can get it to watch a long YouTube video and it'll give me a summary of it. I was using other tools to do stuff like that. So Bard now, and it's got this latest model called Gemini Pro, is pretty good. So, but here's the other reason. I like to play between the different tools as well. I like to take different perspectives. So for me, as someone who likes to rip this stuff to pieces and understand it, I will often I'll run the stuff in 2 or 3, or I'll take output out of one and I'll run it in another. And if you're familiar with the dirty ads approach that I do in my 5-day Rainmaker challenge, then actually when I'm writing those ads, I do a bit of reverse. So when I write that copy, then what I do is I actually take that and I put it back into the tool and get it to tell me, based on this, what is my ideal client avatar. So I'm getting it based on what I'm saying to repeat back to me and then to give me that. So it's my buyer's blueprint in reverse. And I'm doing that just to see, with what I've written and how I've structured my offer, then what do the AI tools, again, that might be a little bit deep for people, but that's kind of, that's how my brain works and how I look at it. And I go back and I reverse engineer, and then I look at it, how it compares with the target audience that I'm going for. What does AI think it's going for, and everything else. Okay. So repurposing is a really, really, really good way to use AI, because you've got the ideation, tweak it yourself, then you get the AI tools to go off and do the work, do all the grunt stuff. I said I'd talk about content, but obviously I've got to just jump over into video. So I do use other tools for video stuff. So I use Opus, Video.io. Descript is my great one for editing. I will do the transcripts in Descript. I mean, I use a few. You don't have to. Here's what I'm doing. And there's another really good one that will actually do a lot of this, but it's a bit more expensive, called Capsho. So if you want to use Capsho, it kind of does a lot of this for you. But anyway, that's a conversation we can have in the group about how to use the nuances and how to use different tools. And again, I can give you some insights and I can give you some pointers and steer. And if people want stuff, then I can give you some specific training on how we're using it. But what I will do is, for something like Opus, is I will get that to take the video. It will then suggest short clips for me, and it goes away and gives me suggestions. And if you've structured your content right, so if you structure your content in a specific strategic way, it actually helps these tools because they find the clips better. So there's another little tip for you. When you're structuring your content, think about that. We do that naturally when we're batch creating our content. We're thinking about that now, and actually we've got other tricks up our sleeve. But also think about for the short clips, okay? Because you want to be making those clips, and then you feed them back in, and then you get the AI tools to rewrite based on those short clips. They can then rewrite the social media posts around it. Okay, is that clear? So what you want to do, and again, I won't totally rely on something like Opus or Video.io or whichever. I'm often, some of the times I'll take it, or I'll go in and I'll take them, or it's give me a steer of the clips we want. So it's done the heavy work. That's very time consuming stuff, looking for those short sound bites and clips. AI does all of that now in some shape or form. And then I can back it into my content repurposing machine. And I have literally a content maximizer. I just feed it in and it comes out with all the stuff I want and I need to go and produce all my social media content. Again, I won't just leave it at that. I will tweak stuff, or I'll have a look at it, make sure I'm happy, but it's doing all that work and all that heavy lifting. Again, something that was very, very time consuming. And, and then you can start feeding these off into tools that'll help you in terms of producing that, getting the short clips up, the short video content and everything else. Okay, so repurposing, fantastic, really, really good. I obviously have only touched on a little bit of what's the whole video piece is moving fast. It's a huge amount of video. And again, I'll allude to that now because I've said you don't need to be on camera. I probably will do something around this just to have a laugh. I've got an idea in my head for something that would be quite funny. I woke up with one morning. I'll tell you now, it's War of the Worlds. Are you familiar with Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds? And because of stuff I'd seen, I woke up and I was thinking of this War of the Worlds. And I just remember that Richard Burton's voice at the beginning. And I think I wrote it down somewhere. Where was it? I haven't got it here, but those words came into my head and I thought, that is my video, because I'd posted something with a robot on it and people had commented and everything else. And I thought that is the start. And I'm going to start with that, this image of out of a scene of War of the Worlds. And, who would have believed? And that's kind of where we're at. We're at another thing, we're a different one. And anyway, I'll leave that for another time. But what I was going to say is, if you, not only in terms of voice narration, can it clone your voice very well, but now we are at the stage where the video avatars are remarkably good and getting better. And if you spend a little bit of time tweaking it, this is me in person, but I could make videos I could literally produce this transcript, feed it in, have my voice, what sounds pretty close to my voice, and me doing this video. And I think if you then think about, and again, I wouldn't try and conceal that. A lot of people will. Obviously, there's all this deep fake stuff and cloning voices that we've got a problem with. But that's a something we need to be aware of. It's hard to change. We just need to be aware of it, and we need to understand it. We need to understand the power of this stuff. And in the wrong hands, it is very, very powerful as well. So yeah, we can create videos that way more quickly. And just think what it means. And again, I'm just going to throw some bits out there because I want you to think about this. Think what that means in terms of personalization, in terms of responding to client, through the DM, or responding at times when you're not going to be online, you're offline, or your team are offline, and you can train these AIs on your business, in your business, to think like you. And whether you just have it as a DM message, or you're putting sort of video responses, just think about where this can go, so you can respond very quickly, appropriately, in the right manner, and help people get to where they need to go very quickly. So that's another whole side to it. It fits AI. There's no part of the business, I think, at this point in time, that will not be impacted at some point of time. We're all will be impacted, obviously, and how it affects our lives. So, which is why I'm saying to people, get in front of the wave, ride it, understand it, use it for your own benefit, and then use your unique ability, your uniqueness. And I think I do think that's another reason for actually being on video, because if there's all this other stuff happening, I think your uniqueness, your own personality, your own perspective, your style, takes a while to clone and do, really, to be honest. The other side, obviously, is AI is very good at data, so it can go and analyze a whole lot of data for you, and start doing a lot of stuff that people don't like to do, but it's very, very important. But of course, it can do a wealth of it now, and it can then adapt and change things. So rather than you having to do it, it can help you do it. It can look for patterns. It can suggest stuff. It can come up with better ways. So I think we are at another revolution. This is, I don't know, that's kind of what made me think about this War of the Worlds thing, because I was thinking about Industrial Revolution, which is kind of what I got the image to create. I got a Victorian London image with a robot. But anyway, that's an aside. That will come out, hopefully. That's one of my little Christmas projects, I think, when we've got some time. So I think that's it. So I hope that makes sense. Just to quickly recap, so I think I've said something about the tools. Obviously, what I'm using predominantly for the content creation is, as I say, ChatGPT, Claude, Jasper. Again, you don't have to sign up for that. I can't remember what I pay for that a monthly. It's not expensive. It's more expensive. I also mentioned Capsho. Capsho is very good, but it does cost more. And I think, yeah, really, it's horses for courses. So tell me what you need, and I can steer you in the right direction. Otherwise, ChatGPT for most people, and the way it is now, will do very, very well indeed. And I mentioned Bard. Bard's interesting because of where it's going, and it's new stuff, because it can read and take. A lot of these others can't. You can't upload a video to them and get them to review, do all that stuff yet. You can, with Bard, you can get it to review a video, and it will give you what you need to know. What I've noticed, though, is still not very good at chapters. I still have to use another tool. It should be better, but I haven't found a way for it to get to produce those chapters, which is, for you doing YouTube videos, is something you should really put in the description. It's helpful, and you should put it on the videos, because it's kind of a good thing for them to have. All right, so yeah, we're at an interesting stage for content creation. Think where you are, think what you need to get. The sort of ways I suggested are: start high, go deep, which is the ideation. So you're playing around with the ideas. Then we're into the content creation piece. When you're doing content creation, make sure you've done the groundwork. And by that, I mean, you've got it's got your company information, it's got your brand information, tone, voice, your client avatars. Give it as much of that color or context as you possibly can. That sets it up, and then you get it to act in the way you want to do it. GPTs, of course, are making this a lot easier, because you can kind of set up a lot of that, and then just by asking a series of questions, I can probably give it everything it needs. But again, that's an iterative process. But that will certainly, for most people, that will probably be the big way probably the way to go, to be quite honest, because if you've already got a heavy workload, then try finding these GPTs that will do what you need to do and help you in the way, and it's make sure you fit them all together that work in your business. You know, overall workflows, as I said in a little video, you have those pieces that do the specific functions and they're trained to do these jobs. So you have specialist assistants trained to do what you need it to do. Then repurposing, I love it. Repurposing for me is a big thing. It just got so much easier. And that's repurposing one big piece of content across for all your different social media needs and one piece of content. So what I didn't say, I think I was going to say, so for instance, last week's video was 45 minutes, my live stream. This one looks the same. I'm meant to be trying to keep it to 30, but sorry, 45 minutes. I got 27 pieces of short form video out of that. I don't need 27. Are all 27 going to get used? No, they're not. But it just gives you an idea. I'm only looking for most of them. Usually I'm looking for three to five. I might have some more. I might keep them for something else. I might use them later. But I'm only looking for a number of short form pieces. But that just gives you an idea. Structure it right. It'll get it. And I'm not just talking about video clips. It will do quote cards, audiograms, carousel, all these things you need to put your social media. That is the backbone of your content strategy. Once you've got that worked out, once the message, you know what resonates with your target audience, your clients, the pains, the problems, what you need to talk about. That is the backbone of your content. And you can then backfill with the personal stuff, the in real life, the smaller pieces or specific areas of topical. Okay. So once you start to do that, you're back in control. You really are. And you've set it up to do what you needed to do. And obviously there's great tools out there. I use one I love, called Metrical, and it's for setting stuff up in it. And again, these are all getting smarter. And that's the same for Descript. All these tools are getting smarter. They've now introduced AI. It can do some of the stuff other tools do. That's why keeping ahead of this is so important, which is why I wanted to really get the Facebook group, the Art of Video Marketing, going. I'd encourage you to join it, because I've gone to some of the best people I could find in the industry. I've listened to quite a lot. I've then focused on the ones who it resonates, it fits with what I'm trying to do. I'm still looking for more. I bought a lot of stuff as well this year, but I've worked with a number of people who've been using AI for quite a while. And the speed of change for all of us is just staggering. You know, we've got video stuff to worry about. So, and now we've got all this AI. So that's kind of what I want to do. I'm building this stuff anyway. If I can give you pointers, come into the group. I want to build a community of other people where we can support and help each other, because the sheer speed of change, the amount of information, we need to cut through a lot of this stuff very quickly and work out, is that noise or is it relevant to us? Okay. So I thank you. I appreciate your time. And I look forward to next week. I think I'm going to go back a little bit. And again, I'm going to, because we need to get this groundwork right. And it's, again, I learned this in the 5-day challenge doing that, about building the right steps. What I'm going to talk about, I think I need to go back and I'll talk about my methodology, the video change maker method, and why it's built the way it is and why it makes my life so much easier in terms of clarity. And I'll share a little bit more about these milestone approaches, but I've also got a way that visually that makes a lot more sense. Okay, so that's something we can talk about in the Facebook group. I'm going to show, as soon as I get some time, I will actually show some of these tools at work. Okay, I'll show you how I'm doing it, and I'll show you them at work, just to give you some ideas of what the potential is. Okay, and anyone who's in my video or is joining my video Rainmaker coaching program, it's open. It's still in beta. It kicks off next year. Then you're going to get some of these. All right. And if you sign up, I'm actually going to do some of that work with you. I don't think that's on the sales page at the moment. I won't go, this isn't a sales pitch. But I'm actually going to do some of these key ones, and I'm going to dive in deeper into that. But anyway, that's an aside. We can talk about it another time. If you're interested, ping me a message and we can work it out from there. All right. So next week, I'll say, I'll talk more about some of the more fundamental steps. But I trust that if you've got questions, please fire away. So questions, I will take questions. So if you've got any, then I'm going to. Otherwise, if you have, again, I haven't been very organized, put hashtag replay, put it in so I know to answer it. As I say, the best thing to do is come into the Facebook group and make sure I've seen your question if you posted one. And so I answer it, because that's where you're going to get me personally to answer your questions. And as I start to build that group up, get it going. I've got quite a lot to do there, I know, but with all this other stuff going on, it's just refining processes, making sure what's work. That's what you got to do. You got to go through the pain first, and then once you're there, it's like everything. It then gets easier. You work out a system that's good for you, and you can go from there. Okay. So, post any questions. Appreciate you, Lisa. Thank you very much for being here. Love that one. I don't know if I'm a great teacher at all. I think I just go off and, that's why I have to have my notes, because I want to share so much. There's so much on this stuff. I get quite excited about it. And I say to my kids, I've never been quite as excited as I have been, when I was in the electronic, financial markets, and I saw this coming down. What seemed blatantly obvious to me clearly wasn't to most people. And this is kind of the same. I feel very much the same way, but on a scale that I can't even imagine, as I say. And if you look at that, I actually rewrote my origin story, and it's brilliant. A quick aside. So I rewrote my origin story, and I'd fed it information. I got AI to interview me for my origin story, and you should, and because I'd given it quite a lot of context and color, it was incredible what it asked me and what it picked up on, and then what it put together. But what it really did pick up on was my ability to see. I've always seen my brain works in a way that I put things together like a jigsaw puzzle. It can all be very disjointed, and suddenly I sleep on it and it starts to put it together. So I always have seen patterns and waves, and I spot connections between different things that seem unrelated. When I worked in financial markets, we broke barriers, because I did stuff where everyone was very constrained. I had a very global view in terms of the operation I ran in desk and teams. So anyway, that's an aside. But yeah, I picked up on this theme of spotting patterns, being an innovator and pushing. And AI, definitely, I've seen the mobile phone arrive. I've seen the internet arrive. I've seen the electronic trading revolution, which I was a big part of, got involved in electronic, we were investors in some platforms. We got involved in those early days. So that's it. So anyway, look, good one. So I appreciate you all being here. And if you're watching, thank you. Please drop your questions, come into the group, and let's have some fun, and let's get to grips with this and understand it better. All right. So take care, and I'll see you in next week's live stream, 2:00 Thursday, UK time. I should remember 9 a.m. East Coast. Sorry for those in the West Coast, US. It's like 6 a.m. or where else you are in the world. And I know we live in this global world. I tend to do quite a lot with people in the US, so that's just why I do it. So, all right, look, thanks very much, and I appreciate your time and being here. If you've got any questions or just want to say, I'm signing off now. All right, thank you, and bye-bye.